Welcome back to State of the Nation. My suggestion of a Tory-Reform electoral pact is picking up a little bit of steam. Here's a reminder of what I had to say last night. Help of Nigel Farage in a Conservative government as a Conservative minister, with Boris Johnson probably returning as Foreign Secretary and welcoming the likes of Ben Habib and Richard Tice into our party, as well as pursuing genuinely Conservative policies, winning the next election suddenly becomes within reach. Well, this was the response of the Policing Minister, Chris Philp, when asked about my suggestion.
I didn't see that suggestion from Jacob. Who the Prime Minister brings into the government is up to him. My job is to fight crime and support the police, and that's what I'm busy doing.
But it didn't take long, rather bizarrely, for the Liberal Democrats to call for my suspension from the Conservative Party. Why calling for a strategy to help my party win the next election would constitute grounds for suspension isn't entirely clear. Probably the Lib Dems are frit, to use Lady Thatcher's word, of so powerful an electoral force. But without indulging in the electoral woes of the Lib Dems any further, I would like to reassert my suggestion that this plan is the clearest roadmap to an electoral victory for Toryism. The Reform UK electoral contract is fundamentally Conservative. It appeals to Conservative voters and members, and there is an overlap which suggests we ought to be working together. Top of Reform's priorities: cutting government waste, slashing net migration, stopping the boats and boosting the economy. These are all policies that belong in the Conservative Party. If the parties remain separate, this could hand a victory to Labour on a plate. And although there are some matters between Reform and the Conservatives on which we disagree, not many actually, all political parties are coalitions, and there's far more on which we do agree, including, I would hope, a desire to keep the socialists out of power. A Labour government would do the opposite of what the electorate wants. Its popularity in the polls is a sign of a desire for change, not support for its policies. Labour would not stop the boats. Its plan is a non-plan that was recently revealed to be a copy of what the government's already doing. It would not cut mass migration. Indeed, mass migration derives from New Labour's ideology. Labour would surrender sovereignty to the Office of Budget Responsibility. We could practically say goodbye to the prospect of tax cuts or meaningfully endeavouring to grow the economy. It would double down on the lunacy of net zero, spending an extra £100 billion on decarbonising the grid by 2030, just to make us cold and poor. It would have even more wokery as its pledge to expand the Equality Act with a new Race Equality Act. All of the problems we see in modern Britain, mass migration, small boats, public sector wokery, ESG, economic stagnation, statism, the list goes on, would be increased by socialism. And this needs to be stopped. So the answer is for the Conservatives and Reform to reunite the Tory family. Now here's what Nigel said last night when he was asked about it by Patrick Christys.
Things say, but Jacob, play a bit of Supertramp. Their top track is called Dreamer. And it's just not going to happen because Rishi is not bold. He has no leadership whatsoever. This will not happen, even though Jacob thinks it's a frightfully good idea.
Well, I will do my best to have dreams, but I know little about vagrancy. But politicians need to have dreams for a greater, better, more successful country. One of the things that's so dispiriting about modern politics is the lack of a dream, a vision, a foresight for where our nation should go. And I want that to be a Conservative vision, not a managerial vision. As ever, let me know your thoughts, mailmog@gbnews.com. I'm joined now by the man himself. Soon, I hope, to be a Conservative Member of Parliament and Cabinet Minister, the one and only Nigel Farage.
Jacob, thank you.
Well, for both of us, and particularly for you, this has never actually been about office. It's about ideas, and it's about how you make this country as strong as it deserves to be.
Yes, I never entered politics for a career, far from it. I gave a career up to do politics, indeed as you did in many ways. Look, I've said for years that Jacob Rees-Mogg and I should be in the same party. It's always seemed ridiculous to me that we were in different political parties because you and I think alike on many, not everything, but many, many issues. And fundamentally, you know, we're patriotic, we believe in borders, we believe in sovereignty, we believe in the little man and woman being given half a chance to go out and create businesses and do their own thing. So we're at one on this. The problem here is twofold. Firstly, I think you underestimate the level of contempt that is felt for the Conservative Party, especially post-2019, it is a sense of betrayal. And the big one is immigration. The sheer scale of change that is happening in our communities. You think Blair was bad? Try this for size. Try this for size. The Conservative Party allowed more people to settle in this country in 2022 and 2023 than came from 1066 to 2010.
I know, it was, 1.4 million net in 2 years.
Yeah.
It is an astonishing
Net, no, gross 2.7.
Right, but net 1.4.
Well, remember,
yes.
net
it
is a lot of British people retiring to Spain or moving abroad.
It's also students
it's
getting home and
some.
things like that.
But the numbers are stunning.
I agree.
The numbers are stunning. And I think that Brexit voters, and particularly the UKIP type Brexit voters, who for the first time in their lives voted Conservative in 2019, they feel an absolute sense of betrayal. That's the first problem that makes any pact of any kind unlikely to win. If it was possible, it might mitigate the level of disaster. But the other problem is this. I can sit and chat with you about these things, and I've got other friends on your wing of the Conservative Party who we campaign with in Brexit and everything else. You are, Jacob, not amongst the members, not amongst the voters, but within the Parliamentary Party, you are outnumbered 3 or 4 to 1. You do not represent the centre of gravity of the current Conservative Parliamentary Party.
The thing that seems to me to mitigate against all of this is that if you were to be a leading figure within the Conservative Party, there would be absolute reassurance that at last we were serious about migration. You could not be in a Conservative cabinet that wasn't doing it properly.
Unless we were continuing the con on the British people.
But then you wouldn't do it.
No, I wouldn't do it.
That in terms of the Parliamentary Party, dare I say that most members of Parliament of all parties actually want to win their seat at the next election. I think the number who are avowedly pro-European and resent the Brexit result is actually quite small. And that if the Prime Minister were to take a lead on this, now that may be a big if, there is a real opportunity because it's where the nation is. You see, you said we should both be in the same party. And I think if we were both in the same party, what we are offering to the electorate is what a plurality of voters want. It would win a majority and could then be implemented.
The difference is I'm in a party, albeit honorary president, that I agree with. You're in a party that you disagree with.
Well, I agree with all the members of the Conservative Party.
But you disagree with policies.
There are elements.
You disagree with net zero. You disagree with what they've done on legal migration. You disagree with
legal migration, I'm glad to say, is being changed. And we are getting that under control.
There's no evidence to support that whatsoever.
There has been.
I've been hearing this for the last 2 years.
But I think some of the changes last year.
The boats are still coming. The boats are up 20% this year so far.
Look, absolutely accept that. In terms of net zero, we've got to delay net zero indefinitely. It is a failed policy.
Jacob, that's your view.
You're absolutely right, but it's an increasing view amongst Conservatives. Because it's not working. And the Conservative Party...
How would you sum up the last 14 years of Conservative government? Marks out of 10. What would you say, Jake?
Well, there are different periods and different bits, but we got the referendum to leave the European Union. The biggest...
Not something the Conservatives wanted to do. They were forced to do it from the outside.
The Conservative members and voters wanted it, though.
Yep.
And you see, I think it's trusting the people is the heart of the politics that you and I represent. That the combined wisdom of the electorate is greater than that of Whitehall and of the Palace of Westminster. The people wanted Brexit. And actually, for all sorts of criticisms you would like to make of him, David Cameron gave us the referendum. He was willing to trust the people. He may have hated the result.
He was scared out of his life of what UKIP was doing to his vote. He was scared of defections happening. He didn't want to do it. He never wanted to do it. And then we had a period where your party gave us a prime minister that, frankly, willfully tried to vandalise it. I mean, you've got to accept, Jacob, the record is gust.
There are problems with the record.
Apart from Brexit.
There are definitely problems.
Apart from Brexit, what have you achieved in 14 years?
Well, I think Ian Duncan-Smith did a great deal with reform of welfare, and I think that Michael Gove's reforms of education, which are still yielding fruit 14 years on, were tremendously important. So there are big things that have been done. Employment is higher than it's ever been, pretty much.
And so are people opting out of employment and living on benefits.
And that's absolutely right.
There's no point. There's no point you and I arguing about policy.
But
right?
we want to change that.
My point is this. A prime minister in Rishi Sunak, perfectly decent man, intelligent man, a man that brings back David Cameron. As Foreign Secretary, is not even going to contemplate talking to Richard Tice.
What would it take for you to come back to the Tory party?
A Tory party.
A Tory. So we want the same thing.
A Tory party, not the old school Tory party,
Yes.
but the radical new form of conservatism that embraces people from all classes,
Yields the
from all
promises of
different parts,
Brexit.
and actually gives the people of this country half a chance, and is unashamed about putting the British people before international agreement.
Yes, and is proud of our history.
Of course, all of those things. And I think we're miles away from that at this moment in time.
You see, I think the majority of Conservative members are there, the majority of Conservative voters are
I
there.
agree.
And we just need to put this coalition together. And it has
I
such
came to
a
your
high chance.
conference. I came to your conference.
You were mobbed.
I was mobbed by Conservative activists, donors, members, but most of your colleagues walked past me and turned their heads to the side.
Well, I certainly didn't. We're almost there. We are getting
We're
a
not.
huge progress being made with me and Nigel negotiating how to get a Tory party that is as Tory as can be.